Alright, homies, this is the moment we've all been waiting for. We've got Longzhu Gaming versus Samsung. Longzhu coming in as the first seed. They get to choose side game 1, 3, and 5. I'm predicting that they only need to choose the game in 1 and 3 today. Samsung is by no means a bad opponent. This could have been, imagine a world where Longzhu either got Misfits or, who else is the second seed? I can't even think right now. But I know, thinking back, when I made the preview video, I'm trusting my past self that Samsung is the best second seed and Longzhu is the best first seed. So these both teams, they couldn't have had a worse draw. So this is going to be absolutely crazy. I think Samsung definitely have a chance to knock out some teeth. Whenever Samsung has been counted out or they've been an underdog, then they seem to have been able to pop off. I think last year at Worlds, Samsung was incredible. I think during the regular season as well, they had some incredible performances against higher ranked teams, but then it kind of dropped off. But at the end, the kind of second half of it, they were playing quite poorly. Hopefully, Samsung comes in with 100%. I think 3-0 is the way we will see the games go. That's a strange thing with predictions, right? If you think a team is better, then it doesn't make any sense to predict anything less than 3-0, right? Because let's say you think that Samsung has a 40% chance to win and Longzhu have a 60% has a 60% chance to win, then theoretically the team, like the outcome that is most likely percentage-wise, is a 3-0. Of course, there are a lot of dynamics at stake. There is draft that is adapting. Maybe there's a side advantage that is stronger. We'll just have to see with how the game goes. I'm hoping that Ambition gets to play today. We don't start off with a Haru. But then again, Haru is able to play the range champions that can maybe potentially punish our boy in the jungle. But Cuz is pointed at as a weakness in Longzhu. But I think the only reasoning is that Kaz, in comparison to his peers in his team, they are, of course, arguably best in their position. You got BDD in mid lane, Khan, Prey, and Gorilla. Then you have Kaz in the jungle. Kaz played phenomenally in the group stage. He didn't have much opposition. Longzhu had an easy time in groups. They had Immortals, Fnatic, Gigabyte Marines. So they didn't need to show off too much. But what was incredible when it comes to Longzhu is they still showed in crunch time how good they need to be, and their decision making, how good they can be. I think that's a better way of putting it. Their decision making was sublime, and they have also the strength because in draft they have a lot of options. Khan can play every style and he can bring in any type of champion to a draft, and I think that is a massive strength coming into the World Championship. It also puts you in the mind of the enemy players. They have to adjust draft to it. Maybe they have to ban some top laners here and there. I think Kuve, as a player, is not going to be the downfall of Samsung. I think Crown and Ruler's performances have been, they've left a lot to desire, and I think when it comes to these two players, these are the ones that need to show up big time for Samsung in order for something to happen in their favor. I think when it comes to this matchup, I think the inactivity of Samsung is definitely like a very big deal. We'll have to see if Samsung are willing to take a step out of their comfort zone, because I feel like the pace of games have been very fast when it comes to the higher level games. The better teams are very able to stall out games. They can push out waves. They can also maintain like a status quo, like an equilibrium by maintaining lane phases for a very long time. They just keep pushing side waves and they make sure they don't get ganked. I think SK Telecom comes to mind. Like usually, SK Telecom is the team that, in a lot of cases, fall behind because of early game troubles, and then they kind of bounce back because they have good decision making. And sure, in those cases, they can stall those games out. But I think a better example of games that are high pace and the early game matters the most is, for example, Samsung Galaxy versus RNG. Those games are very high pace, and RNG get a lead and they just run away with the game. And I think this is how it's supposed to be at the highest level. They run away with the game. They secure first tower, they secure second tower, then they secure Rift Herald off of this. Together with Rift Herald, they take down mid lane tower, and then off of this, they just continue down this line where eventually they'll just get the first Nasher and finish the game with it. All right. Now this is like a lineup that makes more sense than the last one we saw. Kuvia plays a fantastic Cho'Gath. I think Cho'Gath wise, we've seen a lot of Cho'Gaths at this tournament. I think Kuvia has been by far the best performing Cho'Gath. To be honest, that doesn't mean too much, That doesn't mean too much, but we've seen some shitty ass Cho'Gaths. I think, especially from the west, Cho'Gaths have not been that great, and I think Huni has also been a very strong Cho'Gath player. His jungle game was also fantastic. I think he was a big reason why SKT could hold on for so long. You can see it right here how he's ulting the donks and just keeping himself in that mix. I think Huni's Jace performance was also fantastic. I think Huni as a player, I think he's great. I think he definitely is great, and I was happy that he was the one brought to the World Championship and not Untara. I think Huni has a lot of kind of flexibility to himself. There's such a big difference when it comes to Fnatic and they actually play around mid lane. I liked what I saw with Fnatic and the Malzahar pick, and I think whenever Broxa and Caps play together, it's such a difference in what they accomplish on the map. I think a big problem for Fnatic has been that they've been very one-dimensional and predictable in the fact that they just play through bottom, they leave top to die, and Caps to fend for himself. And in a lot of cases, Fnatic have had possibilities to play through mid lane, but they just choose not to. And I think in a lot of cases, Caps is the type of player that can, through lane phases, get advantages for himself and set himself up. Mystic was the one that dropped the Caitlyn pick, and Mystic, I remember at MSI, his Caitlyn play was absolutely insane as well. Reading Sven's AMA, he said that he learned so much from Mystic's Caitlyn, and Mystic's Caitlyn this tournament as well has been absolutely bonkers. It's been crazy, crazy good, and I hope to see more Caitlyn. We saw C9 make that adaptation. We saw EDG also play it. They just copy the poses of the people. So while the future's talking about the strength of K, I guess I will just also do it. Strength of Caitlyn, plain and simple. Plain and simple, strength of Caitlyn. You pick her into the Twitches, the Kog'Maws, and Tristanas. You push them into the wall, you throw them into the tower, boom, head first, put yourself in an item advantage. Even though you scale a bit worse, you keep yourself ahead by being an item ahead, and then you make sure the game doesn't run away to 6 items, and you just continue the snowball, play the trap game, and you keep pushing and playing that game. and it's worked out beautifully. I think Lulu and Lulu, Caitlyn, Jana, Caitlyn are lanes that are very strong when it comes to pushing and being annoying in general, and definitely it's worked. And even though there's been nerfs to her attack speed, and this is 7.18, right? Caitlyn didn't get that rework, so to speak, and she is now, the nerf champion that everyone just ran away from, but it has had a lot of success this tournament. And understandably so, she doesn't work poorly with the Ardent Sensor support, and on top of that, she's a lane bully, especially against these laners. The main thing with Caitlyn is that you can't blind pick her. There is Ashe and Varos players in this tournament. There's Ashe Varos players in this game, There's a big deal when it comes to that, and I think Red side is going to have an advantage when it comes to picking their AD pick third. I think, if anything, we might see some Caitlyn blue side bans because most of the time on blue side you will see teams picking AD and then picking AD support and jungle in the first three because these are the roles that are kind of susceptible to bans. We will just have to see what comes next. It's pretty drawing a bow here. It's looking quite weak, the posture and the extension of the arm. I think this is dangerous stuff here. Brain Gorilla played fantastically, and people and I are seeing this bot lane as the best bot lane at this tournament. I think it's a bot lane that is so self-sustaining. It's very rare that Kaz does something around bot lane and bottom sides. Because see, they had the jungle participation was 16th. I think this goes to say that Kaz can always supply BDD and Khan, and Prey and Gorilla are never in danger. I think they play out their situation down bottom very, very well, and I think I'm hoping that Kuve and Khan will bash heads together and that it will be very explosive up top lane. What I'm curious about is which side Longzu is choosing. I'm assuming they choose blue side because that has been the go-to side for a very long time because of the tribush down bottom and also the potential of a leash from bottom side starting red into top side. I think that is something that is very good when it comes to Longzu's way of playing. I'm curious to see if Longzu are willing to take those risks because it has worked out in the past, and maybe you shouldn't call them risks anymore because they've done it so many times. But I'm referring to the Jace, referring to the more carry pickups that they can go for to play into Kuve, because Kuve is definitely a player that can hold his own and he can
looking at preparation from Samsung Galaxy to buy them a win somewhere. All right, Crumbs, what are you thinking? I'm actually with the fishy on this as well. I was initially 3-0, but then 3-1 because not just preparation. We've only really seen one best of 5 series from Longju, and when they typically faltered, especially against Samsung, it has been in that draft when they kind of overstep their boundaries and Samsung punishes it. So I think that they're going to be able to do that again. It's best of 5. It's going to happen one time. A sliver of hope given to the Samsung.
That's actually a good point. Longzu have only played one best of 5. That's crazy, right? Longzu got first seed and then they get strictly seeded to the final. That's also a very good point. Yeah, I'm with the zeal. I'm with Zeal, my boy. He has a very good point, knowing that we're talking about Kuve and holding his own. Ambition is such an inactive jungler, and I think with that in mind, Kaz can just outperform him straight off the bat, because I think Kaz is just more and more active. Holy moly, look at these handsome guys. I just gotta spare my voice coming into the match. My vote is 3-0. Let's see if Longzhu chokes. That could be interesting, a potential situation with Longzhu choke. Definitely possible, I didn't really realize that Longzhu have only played one BO5. Let's hope that the analyst desk was being honest and truthful, so I'm not spewing random facts that are not true now. The sun in my face is kind of tilting me, but I don't have any other option. Like, it's either that or I'm sitting in a dark room. Wait, Ambition is playing, right? Yeah, okay, Ambition is in. It's time for Ambition Diana, man. That's what he's gonna pop off with. Dignitas Core JJ. Crazy. He's gonna go on a rampage now to avenge his buddies over at Dignitas that just didn't make the cut for the North American LCS. Alright, we're in. Galio blue side ban. I love it. I think the further we go into this tournament, maybe Galio and Kalen might be staple bans. Also important here with the Jana ban, with the potential Lulu first pick, then a lot of the supports that are good with Caitlyn also all of a sudden out. That's a Jace ban from Samsung. Even though the red side, I think it goes to say that they are being very respectful of the Jace. Jace has been blind picked multiple times, and there's not a lot of champions that do too hot against Jace in top lane. Choga has been one of the champions that Kuve performs on the best. I think Lulu is the obvious first pick as it stands right now. I'm curious to see which supports we're going to pivot into if Lulu is the one that gets banned. First pick, most likely Jarvan. Rakan is a very strong support that you can pick here, though. I think with these supports out, Rakan's value definitely goes up through the roof. And Samsung are in a better position, I feel, because they will take up the Jarvan and the Rakan here, and the Xayah first pick was a must. I was suggesting the Jarvan, but in all honesty, giving the enemy team Xayah Rakan when Janna and Lulu is out is just too powerful. So let's see now if Samsung decide to pick Jarvan. Jarvan has a lot of strength in the early game, and that has been very positive. And I think Ambition wouldn't really play it correctly. So this is, no one has any faith in Ambition's early game. And Longzhu, maybe to go for Taric. I'm not too sure about the matchup into Rakan, how well Taric does. But Taric is one of those supports that just runs Ardent Sensor and can do very neatly. Sejuani was something that was created, or not created, but Ambition was the jungler that came out with it. I think it was against SK Telecom. He played it the first time and popped off with it. Thresh gets picked up here, and Thresh is a champion that does very well in lane phase, and as a champion kind of falls off into the later stages, cannot buy out on sensor, and is very reliant on hitting those clutch hooks. I think Rakan, as a support, shouldn't be able to get hooked with all the mobility that he has. And I think when it comes to picking Trash comes with a bit of risk, and we'll have to see how this gets managed. Samsung Galaxy are banning the Gragas. I think I think it's a good ban, because in a lot of cases people see Jarvan Flex and don't want to waste their bans. But in all honesty, there's always this big chance that the enemy team just send Jarvan top and pick up Gragas, and Gragas is going to be the last premium jungler that is available. Gnar is banned as well. Talia from Samsung's side as a ban. I think Talia in mid lane enables a lot of top laners that you can play as well. But with Jace out and Gnar out, I don't know what AD top lane you will be able to kind of blind pick here, especially with the Jarvan. I think Talia Jarvan is a combo that could work. Wow, Samsung with a blind pick Malzahar. I think the response should be Orianna or Syndra. Talia is also a champion that does well into Malzahar, but in a lot of cases where we see a blind pick Malzahar, it is that situation where the enemy team, like the Malzahar team, is banning Orianna or Syndra. But these champions are going to do perfectly fine against Malzahar. Malzahar still has the strength that he can flash ultimate, and he's also quite good against the Trash, because Trash can't really hook him. Oh, Jax is something that has been completely forgotten from my end, and that's a Jax pickup. Jax, in terms of matchups, I think he does fine into Cho'Gath, he does fine into Gnar as well, and I think usually the biggest issue for Jax, I'm trying to remember back, and usually was Rumble. Rumble was a big threat for him, but this time around we see a cannon. Curious to see what build he goes for. We've seen more AP cannons than in the past. Like AP cannon has been the go-to choice, because AD cannon did in fact receive some nerfs with the scaling on W, and in like a very, very long time ago as well, the attack range. We'll have to see. I think Cannon as a pick comes with a lot of risk. Like right here, if he doesn't snowball top lane, then it's going to be like an issue. So I'm hoping Ambition is going to supply this and support this and make sure that it does indeed happen. Because when Jax gets on that roll and he's even and he gets to kind of cue the enemy and E onto him and trade with him very effectively, and then all of a sudden it's going to be a problem. But usually, like if Cannon and Jax is isolated, then Cannon should have an advantage in the early game, for sure. All right, exciting stuff. Looking at the drafts, I think scaling wise, I think I can see it going both ways. The main thing here is that Jarvan into Tristana is not the greatest thing. Xayah and Thresh should have priority bottom, and Syndra and Jarvan, I feel like they should be able to play through mid lane. But Malzahar still at level 6 is very powerful, and if they can latch on to, for example, Syndra before the fight commences, then Samsung also have this possibility to play through the mid lane. Malzahar was the blind pick. I think it was a bit crazy, but I like the fact that Kuve is allowed to last pick his top laner. I am a bit skeptical when it comes to Jax blind pick. I know that Jax is very good into a lot of tank matchups, but let's see how this cannon pays off. Like, let's be honest now. Like, what other champions could Samsung potentially pick here that are good into the cannon? Jace was out, which is a very good pick into cannon. Gnar was out as well, even though I don't think Gnar is super good into Jax. There was no Jarvan, no Maokai, no Cho'Gath. There's not a lot of top lane options left. And Kuva decided to go for his boy in purple. Playing the other champions that Samsung have played in top lane this tournament has also been Camille. And Camille was not that good against Jax. I think Jax is considered to be a counter, or at least a skill matchup. I know that Jax, during my scrim times, when Camille was released and people were playing a lot of Camille, Jax was one of the champions that we picked into it. You can just respond to the jump in with an E and then Q after her when she committed, and be very happy to be closed in a cage together with Camille. Camille knows nothing of brawling. Jax is the #1 brawler. That's a Thunderlord. Usually you ran Fervor on Cannon when you played AD. I'm assuming this is going to be like a penetration build here for Kuve that pivots into... Maybe we see some Proto Belts, some Hourglasses. Early on the Cannon's gonna do fine, but I think AP Cannon in this matchup is kind of falling off. At least in the split push, in team fighting, Kuvi's gonna do fine. Around the mid game, Ambition. Holy moly, cuz with the early invade, the level 2 gang didn't pay off, and he just went straight for Ambition. Ambition got a leash on bottom, so it puts Ambition in a position where his pathing is quite predictable. Cuz from red buff to blue buff went for the top side play and then invaded Ambition on the Raptors. Cuz now with a 2 camp advantage, Xayah Trash perma pushing bottom. With that in mind, they are perma pushing bottom, so it will be impossible here for Ambition to equalize any camps. Ambition is walking straight to top side, and he's taking this risk here by walking top side, that he can get spotted by wards, and on top of that he's walking to camps that don't exist. Holy moly. Holy Crown. Crown with the balls of steel. No Thunderlord. Thunder was on cooldown, we saw him proc it before, and Crown is just gonna TP back, but that's the problem of Malzahar blind pick. You're gonna have a hard time against Syndra. To be fair, I don't think the time should be this hard. I don't think Syndra stomps this lane this hard, but it's definitely working out here for BDD. Malzahar is forced to TP back, and the gain is going to be very small. I don't think BDD is going to lose more than 1 CS here, and he's going to come back into lane with the cleanse. Kind of wonky for BDD to run cleanse against Malzahar, right? But looking at the rest of the team with the Rakan and the Sejuani and the Cannon, there is definitely other things to cleanse. The early pressure from Kuz in top lane also matters for top sides. Jax manages to base and get that Doran Shield. It's like the anti-harass build here with the Corrupting Potion and the Doran Shield. Oh, this is trading. Kuz is coming in. No risk here for BDD. I think BDD is somewhat of a question mark when it comes to a lot of players, and people are rating Faker's performance in the group stage higher. I wouldn't necessarily agree. I think BDD has been very solid and has been able to play with Kuz, and he's played his matchups phenomenally. Even though like the opposition in mid lane maybe wasn't the strongest in their group, this is kind of a test of BDD's strength, and Crown hasn't been a massive performer in group stage either. So maybe this isn't like the final test or a true test for BDD. We'll just have to see the further they go into the tournament. I imagine that, the true test is going to be Xiaohu, and also Xie has been playing very good this tournament. So Khan is in a very happy position, like the CS is equal and he managed to soul push in a wave, and he's also in base here. Like he has a base advantage, and Kuve now not forced to use flash, which is very positive. But the main thing here is that Khan has a base advantage. They would lose a 2v2 right now though, because Ambition is just way healthier. But Kuve also reaching level 6, which is going to shift 2v2 heavily. Kaz just goes for the base. Ambition knows now that Jarvan is very low and then Cannon is pushing in all the way. Ambition had some time to work with there if he wanted to invade the enemy Wolves, but it just didn't happen. He's backing off. Doesn't feel like the risk is necessary because his camps are spawning anyway, and in a world where he does Wolves, then he's not gonna. Ooh, holy moly! Well, Malzahar blind pick, boys. That's not really how it works, man. Crazy stuff. I was kind of surprised that Samsung went for the Talia ban. I think, if anything, the Talia ban should be dropped, and then I feel like they should be the ones playing Talia. If they want to impact this top lane matchup and be the ones contesting the top lane, they should be the one playing Talia. And I think Crown's Talia is something that was one of the better performers in the group stage. But Crown is getting smackarooed. He's getting smashed in the mid lane. Crazy stuff. Like BDD has an advantage from before. He's also slow pushing in a wave. Crown maybe needs his wave to get that, boom. Interesting here how BDD just doesn't lose him straight away. He's like, can I get a solo kill here? Really? In the quarterfinals? Then he's like, ooh, I could just flash in and get this. Sure, he didn't need to flash. He could have just autoed and ulted, and it could have ended the same. But all in all, insane stuff from BDD. Playing the matchup very fine. Longzu will have a super easy time to play through mid lane, and they can always alleviate pressure from top side, which is going to be a big issue. Khan is also surviving very well in this lane. Like Covid didn't get to pressure Khan at the time where he wanted to because Kaz invaded the top side and dealt with ambition, and then Kuvi had this problem where, holy moly, Crown is just gonna die here once again. Whoa. Never mind. I lied. My homies. I apologize. Very important base cancellation here from Samsung. It's gonna win them a lot of time. It's gonna allow them to push in. Let's see if Ambition can capitalize on this. Crown has ultimate, so this is a bit dangerous. That's the cleanse. BDD is gonna die. Really unnecessary for him to just take turret aggro there. I think if he didn't take turret aggro, it could have been enough for BDD to survive. But we need to keep in mind here that BDD... I want to talk about a few things. So the first thing that I didn't finish was Kuve had a hard time because Kaz went for the invade knowing where Ambition started. Ambition got caught on his own Raptors. Kaz took half of them and also chunked Ambition, which forced Ambition to go into his bottom side jungle. In that case, Ambition based, took his wolves, based and went topside. Golems were not available. At this time, during this time, Kuva needs to think for himself. There's a possibility Jarvan is going to be behind me. It's impossible to ward for this. He needs to just accept the fact that Jarvan might be behind him. He needs to ward his tri-bush or something. But there are a lot of angles that Jarvan can work with, and this puts Cannon in a position where he can't necessarily push the lane. This is a big deal, if Jax can still push in a wave, get that Doran shield, get the corrupting potion without a lot of punishment, that is a very big deal. And Cannon bounced the wave and then he slow pushed, and he wants to harass Jax during this time. He wants to make sure that Jax doesn't get slow pushed in this wave, and Ambition got caught in the jungle. And afterwards we saw the BDD play in mid lane where he flashed in to kill Crown. It's a big deal too. We can fast forward here, and then eventually, I thought this was kill for sure, but the damage from Jarvan ultimate was blocked by Malzahar's passive. Eventually, Malzahar gets out of the cataclysm because it just runs out, and the lack of ultimate is what makes Crown survive here. Syndra did have a cooldown, and also Jarvan's damage was also removed. So Syndra is definitely playing too far up and also playing to the wrong side. So this was kind of a uncharacteristic mistake from BDD. But also, it's looking at it, it's also understandable at the same time. There's this angle that is kind of dead, and Ambition finds it, and Ambition gets a kill 9 minutes into the game. Incredible. I think, all in all, I think he didn't need to take this risk. Could have played into bottom side, had more vision to work with there, and BDD just wanted to angle himself around the tower because the area around the mid lane tower is kind of like it's in a circle, right? The range of the top lane turret, I mean the mid lane turret, of any turret to be honest, and he just wanted to angle himself to harass Crown as much as possible. Ambition predicted this and went for the kill on BDD. I think BDD could have survived if he didn't ult Malzahar and he could just walked away. He took 2 turret shots, which would have kept him alive long enough for Kaz to save him in the river. So I think that's a big issue. We see once again in mid lane Kaz is in river, and Ambition finds an angle. BDD takes a turret aggro right here, and he takes 2 turret shots. Now he could have had like maybe like 250, 300 more HP there, and Kaz would have supported him in time, and Ambition could have been in a situation where he was definitely killable. Like Ambition would chase BDD with his red buff, but all in all, it could have ended badly for Ambition. So now this changes the landscape of mid lane BDD with no summoners. Crown's gonna have his flash up soon. There is this real possibility for Samsung to be able to one-shot our friends in the mid lane. Ooh. I'm just curious about what went on here. Like, Kaz didn't do blue buff because Syndra was dead. Then he left it, just left it, and then when we come back on the map here, Jarvan was in base to get the Cinderhulk. Ambition goes out on the map, 2 pink wards to top side, meaning Samsung wants to play into top side to support this play into top side, and then Ambition gets to pick up the blue for free, because Kaz's pathing was designed so he would do blue buff before he based, and then he needed to kind of base and go into bottom side and then support that play. But right now, you can also see Longzhu is kind of more keen to play into bottom side because they've maintained, we haven't talked about praying gorilla at all, but they maintained push bottom the entire game, which is completely understandable when you have Thresh. Like if you play Thresh and that doesn't happen, like he's running Ignite because he needs to have lane pressure. If Thresh doesn't have lane pressure, then he's the most useless dog ever. Even then, I think Thresh is quite risky. But Ambition now, with the blue buff invade and top side play, puts Khan in an awkward position where he can get Dolphin. Let's see how this pans out. Khan with no flash, Kuva with no flash. I'm not too sure when that happened. And there should be a kill on Khan. Oh. Whoa! Whoa! Nah! Holy! Holy shit! That was too close. Too close. I think it was very close that Khan would just be able to Q Sejuani once again there, and Ambition's Q just came off cooldown first. I think in a case where Longzos has like Khan has flashed that, then it's also going to be a rough situation. But I like the fact that Longzhu recognized that contesting topside is something that is kind of a blind play and is going to put them in an awkward position if Samsung. Like imagine now, like if they go for the topside play, either they defend and Samsung have priority, Khan gets some harassment on the turret, and then Samsung go into river and they have priority into mid lane, and that's also bad, right? Let's say a situation where Samsung doesn't commit to topside, Ambition is not topside, and Kaz goes for the top defensive play. He cannot really gank Kuve because Kuve is pushing in the wave and he's also warding the river, and at the same time Khan is unhealthy. So the play for Kaz, no matter what, is going to be kind of inefficient if he goes into topside. The play he did was, either way, if he runs into Sejuani bottom side, is going to be healthy and positive because he has a mid laner pushing bot lane. So regardless of what happens, if he goes into the bot side river, it's going to be quite positive. And in a case where Sejuani goes top side and does the play, he is going to be together with his bot laner that is going to be able to hit the tower harder, and at the same time Infernal Drake is up. So the main issue, in a lot of cases when it comes to playing around top side is that if the enemy team plays around bot side and pressure equally, then their pressure is going to matter more because hitting the tower is just easier. killing the targets like Rakan and Tristana is going to be easier, especially in this current meta. Like, sure, looking at Cannon Jax is not necessarily like current meta material if we're talking about the current meta, but all in all, you know, Cannon and Jax, like let's say it was like a Cho'Gath or a Maokai, then it would have been the same situation. It's hard to put pressure onto these, but the main question is how much does this impact the split push scenario here for Cannon and Jax. I think with Cannon buying AP, I don't think he's going to be that effective in the split push, but he's definitely going to be stronger right now. And we'll just have to wait for Jax to reach kind of critical mass where he becomes so strong that he can just keep on pressuring. Longzhu did secure the Infernal Drake, which is quite clutch. Ambition now with the second gank of the game that is very successful. This is crazy how Khan survived for so long. It was quite beautiful to watch. Kuve had to run away from the turret. Ambition was the one that tanked second, and now we just go away from that play, and Longzhu are now committing on bot side. W from Core JJ was just used in place. He kind of panicked. I look at him Wing in place. That isn't holy moly. That's an E into flash away from Core JJ. He just didn't want to get ulted from Syndra. Syndra was not in range though, so the flash I don't think was necessary. Core JJ just, you know, this is like when you scare a cat and it just flies off into the wall. You know, this was that was the reaction from Core JJ. But Samsung in this position shouldn't have been so far up. You know, Longzhu having all the vision behind them. You know, the biggest issue for them is that getting priority in mid lane was a possibility, but now BDD has his flash back up. Crown would have had his flash first, and Ambition committed to the top side play. The main thing here is that to break this, Kuven needs to be like in a better position with his TP, or Samsung need to be able to get priority through mid lane, through the 2v2, and then play into bottom side river. Because right now, Samsung are in a predicament where they can't really push out bottom because they are playing against, first of all, a stronger bot lane, and also their mid lane doesn't have priority. So BDD can always push in mid lane and then walk towards bot side. In a lot of cases, we see Lucidity boots here on Malzahar. I'm not too sure if I like the Merc threads. I don't think it's that necessary. Like there's Syndra and Trash, and there's Xayah, and there's Jax, but I don't know. I think if anything, you want to avoid CC and not being in CC in the first place is already like a rough situation for yourself. Like you got your passive right, and I just don't feel like Merc threads are that necessary. I think Lucidity boots on Malzahar are great because like the flash is so important. Khan now is freezing the wave. Kuve is roaming into mid lane while this is happening. Syndra's in base though. I think this is a good time for Khan to freeze because he needs to wait for his mid laner anyway to pressure. Samsung are getting an opportunity here off of the BDD's base to pressure out and push out bottom. Longzhu have big items on bottom though, so the moment Samsung don't manage to push this in and pressure this in, then they're in a bad position. Samsung did in fact kill the wave though, and they can just run off and be the one spacing after this. Crown was in base as well after pushing out the mid lane wave, and the CS differential in mid lane is slowly closing again. Big item advantage bottom. Let's see what Ruler can afford here. I don't know why I always think Tracer when I think of Samsung 80. I think Ruler, Tracer. Jax managed to maintain a freeze. Longzhu with the pushing bottom and to rotate into mid. Got them a good chunk of the mid tower. I wish we could have see like how Kuve and Khan burned both of the flashes. I don't know if it was like a close fight or close 1v1. I don't know how it panned out. Stinger finished on Jax. I think the further and the further this matchup goes up in top lane, then the worse it's going to be for Cannon, especially with this itemization like Hextech Revolver into Haunting Guys. This is, you know, very strong in the early game, but in the 1v1 is going to fall off. Because with the Lantern dodge, not a big deal, right? Infernal Drake is going to be the next Drake that spawns. And Ninja Tabi on Tristana makes it a bit donkier here, especially since Jarvan also has physical damage to hit Ruler with. I think if anything, Alonso have a summon advantage was going to make a big deal here. And Syndra having priority in mid lane, if Samsung are able to play through bottom side, I think it's a real possibility that they do get priority. Because even if Malzahar gets pushed in here, which, doesn't have to be the case, I feel like the situation can be very positive for Samsung, because they can always respond to the case where Syndra walks first. But I'm surprised to see here that instead of walking up to the mid wave, that BDD is just giving it up and just walking towards his Raptors. I don't know if he's doing them or if he's killing them or if he's just walking to check them. He did spot Ambition multiple times on these wards and could have been in mid lane already pushing, but he's just giving Crown mid lane priority here. I'm not too sure about what BDD is doing, but I think it's a mistake here that he's not pressuring mid lane and pushing the mid wave and getting mid wave priority. Crown has kind of made a comeback. One thing that you have to be scared of when you're playing Syndra is that Ambition could gank through the lane, and all of a sudden, Crown could just flash and ult BDD, and then he could potentially get one shot. Even though Ambition doesn't have that much front-loaded burst, if it was maybe Kha'Zix's Malzahar, it would have been a lot different, or Malzahar Lee Sin, right? And ganking through lane would be a real possibility. But I don't know if they have enough damage to just one-shot Syndra in a Malzahar ultimate. I want to take a step back and just see the play here of Gorilla. Gorilla just walking to group up with Kuz when he appears here. Imagine being at Sidestone with Thresh. A big thing here for Samsung is that they did in fact itemize Ardent Sensor, and the fact that Samsung lost their tower is not going to matter that much, because Crown now, if BDD is able to push in, Crown can support the bottom play with the TP, and the fighting capabilities here of Samsung are very, very good. Rakan is much stronger than Thresh. Crown's ultimate didn't matter too much. Ruler is going to jump in here because it's going to explode, but it's not going to be enough. Kuve's TP is from a bad position, bad angle. Ooh, Kuve. Leandri's Torment doing work. Khan is still in the mix though. Khan has some money on him. He didn't finish his Trinity Force. No flash on core JJ. He's gonna end up dead. Ooh, alright. Ruler does have his W. There's the plant. Jax in kind of an awkward position. Okay, so we got a 2-for-3 situation. Samsung are not going to be able to do the Drake. Ambition spawns after dying first in the fight. I want to go back and take a look at this. So the main thing here is that Gorilla had priority into mid lane, right? So he cleared all the vision except this one ward here for Samsung. So I'm not too sure if this would be the TP position that would be better for Kuve. A big advantage for Kuve as well is the fact that he was in base and bought items, and Jax has enough money here for Trinity Force. So that is a big deal. So he has the better items than Jax, so it's a good time for them to fight. Also, Ardent Sensor is finished. But usually, you know, the main thing with Rakan is like using Ardent Sense effectively is not the easiest thing, especially if you don't have Zaya. Usually, you need to use E to just move around, and I think that's a big deal. You know, looking at both comps, I feel like Samsung should be stronger in a fight currently if they just manage to layer the CC properly. Rakan should be more useful than Thresh. Malzahar ultimate should be very powerful in these cases where you know the goal is to just one shot a target. So right off the bat, I feel like Samsung are in a better position to fight at this point in time. Longzhu, looking at this, you know, Tristana is pushed in bottom and Zaya is in a better position. Like looking at map position wise, like when I was talking about position, I was just talking about the strength of each composition. Map position wise is definitely in favor of Longzhu here. We can see that Tristana was catching away bottom, and Zaya and Thresh here have priority into river. So position wise, they have an advantage that Tristana is outie, right? We continue on. There's a lot of damage going down for Longzhu without it being traded back to, and I feel like it's a big issue. Ambition just gets bursted down when the Sejuani passive is off. Ambition is no longer that tanky. It's quite early in the game, 17 minutes. He has a Cinderhulk and some cloth armors. I think the main issue here is that Ambition gets chunked out and he just gets killed before the fight starts, because I feel like it could have ended the same way for Samsung, where they were the ones one-shotting someone if they're the ones being grouped. But Longzhu use the priority from bot side to start off this fight, and they hide in this dead zone here. DQ on Crown lands, and Crown is forced to flash. Maybe Crown's flash was too premature, but I feel like he would have had to flash anyway with the Jarvan ultimate landing. So Crown's flash is good. And then this ultimate on Jarvan, I don't know if he should just wait, because this ultimate definitely could have been better. Ambition gets killed because he gets hit first, right? And Ambition flashes out from the Jarvan Cataclysm into here. BDD ults. You know, all in all, my thought process is telling me here that if Crown just saves his ultimate, then because his ultimate doesn't matter too much, and in a case where Ruler comes in here and Malzahar ultimate is still intact, I think this could have potentially ended better. Kuve finds the angle for the TP, like for the ultimate, the flash ultimate. The main thing here is, in a case where Cannon flashes TP's here, I feel like he's in too much danger. Like the main issue is that Tristana is out of position. I think Kuve's TP is conservative and good, and I think it was very good. I think this plant was so clutch as well for Samsung, because right here, if we look at the plant and the time it was used, both Core JJ and Crown get saved here. They both don't have flashes. They get out. Jax would have been able to Q after and stun them up. And then Gorilla with the hook on Cannon secures the kill. Quite easy to land in the point blank scenario. Core JJ also falls, and we have a 2-for-3 situation. In all in all, I think Samsung is a stronger fight, like stronger fighting wise, and I think what Samsung needed to look for here is, you know, use the fact that they have a very strong combo here. Use the fact that Malzahar can always support with the TP and always play through bot lane. And then together with this Tristana, Rakan and Sejuani, if they play through bottom and get pressure through bottom, I think they will win. I think they win the fight. They have Ardent Sensor, they got the Ninja Tabi on Tristana. I think they have the tools to be stronger. But in this case, Longzhu was stronger because they had priority on the base. Xayah base first, and she was pushing in bottom. Tristana needed to catch. And Longzhu was just using their priority to get vision in the enemy jungle and group up together. Big difference now on Khan is that he actually finished his Trinity Force. The last time they fought, there was no Trinity Force on Khan. No flash on Kuve as well, which is also very important. The flash is going to be clutch. Ooh, Jax takes it in the end with a hit. Kuve. Ooh, alright, Prey. Doesn't use his ultimate. Longzhu are playing with fire here. I feel like they're definitely playing with fire. They are using their advantage in tempo once again. Tristana was spotted bottom side, and then they're just walking straight into enemy jungle here and using the fact that Malzahar did show up on the wave, Tristana did show up on the wave, so Longzhu have this moment where they are grouped and the enemy team is not grouped. We were seeing a replay before we saw the situation, and Samsung just need this moment of time. Like there's this little window for Longzhu to do this, do this play, but the moment, it feels super risky. Like Samsung are so powerful at this point in time. They are super strong when it comes to fighting, and they have everything that is required. Like they have the good engage, they have the Sejuani, they have the Cannon as well to follow up. Tristana is also in a good state, and Rakan, they have like some of the best teamfight champions in the game at this point in time. So I felt that this was a really risky play from Longzhu. Like they got the Infernal right for one. So it's, props to them. They had like the small window to do it. We have this situation again where Tristana was cut off on bottom side. Once again, for me, what Samsung needed to do was just to leave Malzahar to fend for himself and then, play through bottom, push out bottom all the way, and then just force a situation on bottom. And then Malzahar could definitely follow up. The main thing that Longzhu could do in this case, if this would be the situation, is that Longzhu could potentially do the full rotation into mid lane. Mid lane tower was very low, and taking the fight to the TP is also a way to approach it. I think if anything here, Crown could have woke up a bit further. I think Crown is just being a bit of a sissy. If Crown just commits here and potentially just ults someone, then maybe this could be a better situation. Core JJ's ultimate is just coming off cooldown. That's the ult on Prey eventually. Like I think if Prey... Yeah, Prey just gets hit by the Sejuani ultimate. Okay. I feel like Samsung is in a great position now. There's this big issue that Thresh is falling off here, and Rakan is going to be so much more useful than the Thresh. And Malzahar is also in a good state. You couldn't think for a second now, if you look at Crown, that he got solo killed by the Syndra. This is like the standard outcome of the mid lane matchup. BDD Stomp is no longer relevant. Kuve on the side lane, eventually now when Khan buys MR, he's going to be stronger and stronger, and Kuve is going to fall off a bit in the 1v1. But right now, Cannon's also in a pretty healthy state. He got the tower up top, and he is not that unhappy with where he's at. But Khan did in fact get 2 kills. No TP on Kuve. Jack's TP is going to be the one that comes up first. Let's take a look at this again. Holy moly, the hook on Core JJ, and then Cuz with the crazy ultimate that lands on 3 people. What happens here? Okay, the hook. And then the ult that lands on almost everyone. And then Kuve coming in from bottom. He just walks here. Khan with the TP in. Holy moly. Crazy things happening in this game. 2 for 3 once again. So as we can see, like, Kuve is instantly moving. He sees the fight going on. Even if he has a wave bot going on bottom, he just commits to moving. Khan has the TP, so he can come in a bit later. Kyle could have potentially just TP straight up, but he doesn't know the position of Cannon, which makes it a bit more awkward for him. He does have a ward here, so maybe it's enough for him. Jax to just walk away and start TPing earlier. But the TP timing is still fine. Maybe Khan could have TP'd earlier and it maybe would have mattered. The engage here from Kaz is quite beautiful. The ultimate from Prey is not that good. Like, Prey's ultimate is pretty weak, I would say. Doesn't do much, and just he doesn't even have E to use to root up ambition, at least. That's what he uses, the E, and there is also where Tristana just gets one-shotted by BDD. Gets hit by all spells, and BDD here gets stunned up, and Kuve flashes in. I mean, Prey is the one that flashes out, and Kuve is the one that ults in. So engaging, like, the Sejuani ultimate use on Gorilla didn't matter at all. So this was a waste, right? This was definitely a waste. It started off the fight because it's the one engaging. He gets core JJ, and you know, looking at the items, mid lane is equal. Xayah finished the rapid fire, so that's quite good for her. But I just feel like this Jarvan ultimate should have been dropped, and like right here, he does get Malzahar ulted, right? So he can't really drop it. Like, Cataclysm can't be repressed while you are suppressed. Like, in a situation where the Cataclysm is dropped here, then it's a lot better, but he gets instant ulted after getting knocked up by Sejuani Q by Malzahar. Malzahar just drops the ultimate, he gets suppressed and he dies. And then Prey kind of wastes his ultimate. I feel like Prey could have used his ultimate a lot better here. Like, it just hits ambition and then the feathers don't do anything. Yoro's ambition. And then Ruler just gets popped here. I think Ruler is mispositioning big time and he's just trying to auto Prey here, and it's really not necessary. He's walking up when he doesn't need to walk up. So I think Ruler is definitely making a mistake here. He needs to just wait for Cannon. The main thing here is if he didn't walk up like he did, would Kuve get a worse position for this fight? I don't think so. I think they still would have been able to force a flash and potentially kill BDD. I want to see how BDD flashes here though. Like, he just flashes over the wall and stuns ult core JJ, and then eventually stuns here, and boom, it hits. Very easy with all them balls in the mix, but I think Ruler is just making a mistake to go for this auto. I think they need to wait for Kuve to come online. BDD no flash from before, and I think if Ruler still was alive here, it would have been a big difference. So Ruler leaves a lot to desire here in the fight. Prey survives and flashes out, puts down some damage. The main thing here, Prey could have done better with his ultimate, but all in all, I think you know, Core JJ also leaves a lot to be desired here. He just gets one-shotted, and that's also the weakness, right, with Rakan and playing against Syndra. You know, he can easily get one-shotted. He has itemized auto sensor. He's not that beefy. Rakan really gets beefy, but he does get hooked first. And it is definitely one of the better targets long as you can hook. The rapid fire cannon hits. The ultimate from Jarvan and the combo from Jarvan also hit. And then the E also hits Core JJ, and then he gets ulted. And of course, Core JJ wants to start the fight. He doesn't want to be engaged on. So long as you find a very good engage and Core JJ doesn't do anything in this fight, he gets hooked in, he also gets one-shotted, and this matters a lot. And it just goes to say that Samsung are just so much stronger in these team fights, but there's like these things that tilt it in favor of Longzhu. Like if they one-shot Core JJ, if they are the ones committing to the fight and they one-shot Core JJ, and then the way Ruler died, it's also a big issue. I think with that in mind, it goes to say that Samsung's team fight composition is very, very strong. Even with these things going so horribly wrong for them, I think it's definitely problematic. So there's the Syndra stun that lands. That's why he didn't Syndra E right off the cooldown here to interrupt Crown. He Syndra E to interrupt or hit Core JJ in the Jarvan ultimate. Core JJ doesn't even flash out. He could have potentially done that. And then just wait around the wings to proc his keystone. Yeah, maybe Core JJ could have just flashed out when BDD's flash came in, because BDD flashes and then ults, and Core JJ is being kind of a grandpa here. If he just flashed out, earlier, sure, it's easy or it's hard to just flash the exact moment Syndra flashes, but if Core JJ maybe flashed a bit earlier here, like he flashed out of the Cataclysm over the wall, he could have been healthier, and he could have just procced his keystone together with his ultimate and W. Like if Core JJ just potentially flashed a bit earlier, I don't think he has enough range to flash over the wall, so it's kind of awkward for them. But either way here, I feel like his flash should be enough to get him out of the situation. If he doesn't E towards his AD here, E's towards Malzahar or Tristana and gets stuck in the Cataclysm and then gets one-shotted, and then they just lose a valuable member that doesn't do anything. Like Kui comes in with the ultimate, and it was kind of mediocre because of the lack of flash. But all in all, Longzhu are in a happy state. Like they need to kind of scale further and further into the game. They need to get the items that deal with the Malzahar, deal with the CC here. QSS is going to be very valuable as an item on all these members, and I feel like the win condition for Longzhu is going to be the Jax. That is now 3-1. And then Samsung need to look for the engages in the 5v5 team fights, but Samsung have a strong composition to do it. They have a lot of CC, they have a lot of engage tools as well. Like there's the flash from Malzahar, there's the Rakan, and Longzhu need to just play a game where they disengage and use their priority. But right now I think Tristana should get priority over Xayah, and Syndra should be able to contest mid lane just fine. Because a lot of these situations, they are in favor of Longzhu because they are the ones with priority. And I feel like if Samsung just put themselves in a scenario where they are a bit more patient and play around their own priority in these both situations, I feel like they can take more favorable fights. But this is, reminds me of the game for Samsung against RNG, where Samsung was taking fights that weren't exactly favorable for them. Even though they're stronger, they were taking fights that are less favorable when they can set themselves up to take fights that are more favorable. So we saw that situation before, that first initial team fight when Ambition got caught on bottom side and Longzhu were just waiting around the wings. What Samsung could have done is just play with the bottom fact and play with bottom and just push in bottom and use the fact that Malzahar has TP to support if something breaks down, and then Samsung could have just been the ones pressuring. Two finished items on Kuve, but as we said, Cannon, AP Cannon is going to be strong in the fights, but it's going to fall off in split push. Khan seems to have taken over now. Not too hard, but enough for him to get priority. A big thing here is that Kuve does have TP advantage, and I feel like Samsung should be looking to use this. They have a good Nasha team, good way of killing Nasha for them. They have 2 Liandry's Torment, they also have the Malzahar, and they can kill it down very fast. Khan with priority here on bottom though is going to give him kind of space to roam into mid lane if it's necessary. Khan is just going for the base. Hopefully he goes through mid lane after that to group up with his team to take over some Nash vision. He might also be forced to just go straight bottom because he did blue, and that puts him kind of behind on the tempo that he created from the push. Khan is now waiting in base for something. Maybe it's a frozen mallet. There we go. Buys the frozen mallet. Cloud Drake is the next one. No one really cares. Tristana is also now in a very good state, considering that her opposition needs to buy Quicksilver Sash. Is going to put her at like an even footing in terms of gold for items, even slightly ahead, because the only difference here is that Saya has 2 assists. Khan did in fact roam down, and now you have to ask yourself right here if Kuve is making the right decision. If he could just continue here to push, he could push another wave and then make Longzhu waste a little bit more. I think what Kuve is afraid of is Jax waiting in a bush, but even in that case I feel like he could have gotten away quite easily. After warding here, he could just walk down bottom, and he decides to group in mid lane instead. There's no wave in mid lane. He definitely had time to just push out bottom at any point in time here. The second argument for not pushing out bottom is that if he pushes out bottom, Jax is going to go there earlier and push out earlier, and Kuve is happy if he's giving Jax room to group up, because then Kuve can do the same, because in the group scenario he should be like more effective than the enemy the enemy Jax. So if he doesn't push out the wave, he does in fact win more time, but he loses more CS, because he's going to lose more waves, and the wave is going to slowly stack bottom. He's going to lose more CS, and then Jax is going to catch it and push out and continue his game. Cannon, by not pushing though, is going to gain more time in a group scenario, and that's what he's happy with here, right? So for sure, you know, the reasoning is understandable for sure. Kuve has not been forced to go bottom at all for a long time, and Khan is in a group scenario. Syndra is just wave clearing, and Jax is now going down bottom. Khan does have now the TP to support. Tristana is showing up top, but Samsung did already kill the mid wave, and Ruler just showed. Let's see if Ruler showed when the wave mid lane was killed. Like, he's showing already. Okay, so Zaya pushed in first, and now the wave is dead in mid lane. Tristana kills the wave that was coming in, and Samsung were at no risk. Samsung also positioning so Tristana can join this with no issues. So the win condition now for Longzhu is just to stall this out. The fact that they have 2 Infernal Drakes, I have to put the scaling in their favor. Khan just needs to work his split push game. I would be interested to see if there would be like a Hexic Gunblade buy because of the Infernal Drake working double then for Jax. I think that could be interesting. Also gives Jax a lot of resistances with his ultimates, and also synergize as well with his kit in general. I think the MR approach is also a good way to go. Frozen Mallet makes it awkward for Kuve to push out beyond the point. Okay. So the big issue here for Longzhu, as we can see, is that it's hard for them to break the situation where they kind of break the vision of Samsung here around Baron. Face shaking is very hard, especially against Malzahar. Malzahar has a lot of front-loaded damage, and holy moly. That is the one shot on Cuz. Gorilla as well. Alright. TP from Khan. Not that necessary. Samsung are just backing off. Now this is going to put Longzhu in a more awkward position because Kuvi is going to continue to push out bottom, and then the moment he has pushed out bottom all the way, Samsung have an opportunity and a window here to do Nasher. Kuvi is going to push out bottom, and Gorilla just has to face check. Very awkward situation. I think it's a mistake that BDD doesn't have a blue trinket. It could have been like a saving factor here, but Khan, using his TP, is going to put him on a clock. Kuvi is going to push bottom and hit bottom tower. Khan is going to either respond or stay with his team, and during this time, either Samsung get bottom turrets, maybe a sec one even, and Samsung also at the same time can force around Nasher. Khan stays around and just gives up bottom turret for it, and Samsung are happy with that trade. This puts them at even gold, and I feel like the thing that needs to carry Longzhu right now is their Infernal Drakes. But there's this big issue that Longzhu have a very hard time face checking bushes. They have a hard time getting vision. They don't have, in a situation where Khan gets priority, he needs to just push out, and the more and more I think about it, the more and more I like the move from Kue, where he just ignores bottom. It's a heavy slow push, and it gives him a lot of time to work with in terms of being grouped. And then, Jax not having a window to push in. The moment Jax wanted to start pushing in bottom, Kaz did in fact get caught. He has the possibility of flagging bushes and then warding slowly forward. And as long as Malzahar is showing, they can know for a fact that the enemy team is not doing Baron. But that was the question on his mind, like Kaz face shaking bushes is not a possibility. Khan needs to push in and roam from bottom into top side. But deja vu from a previous scenario, Kuvi with the ultimate on to pray here. A lot of CC on on Samsung. Let's take a look at this again. So Kuve's ultimate, I feel like it could have been better, because like in this case, if Kuve just flashes into this space, then he's definitely ulting more people. Prey with his ultimate denies a lot of Kuve's ultimate here, and it's important to remember that Kuve can't be too wild with how he goes in, right? Because he doesn't have hourglass, and he needs to be a bit conservative in the way he approaches this. He did in fact flash BDD's stun here. Maybe it would have missed even, like if he didn't flash, but I think making the assumption that the enemy will hit their spells is a fair one to make. But I'm just thinking in a scenario where Kubi just flashes in here and just commits together with his team, instead of committing only on Longzhu like on Prey here. Prey is gonna ult, and then he's gonna be in the air, and then he's gonna flash away, which is also like fine, right? It's fine, because Kuve does in fact save his flash here. But the moment this happens and his flash gets burned for other reasons, then I feel like it's no longer worth it. Massive Jarvan ultimate forces Crown's flash, Core JJ's flash. Rule is also forced to jump out of it, and looking at the situation again, it's the exact same thing where where Gorilla gets engaged on, and it just doesn't matter. He gets knocked away afterwards by Ruler, and the engage onto Gorilla is one of the worst targets to get onto. And sure, Zaya should be hard to catch. Jarvan is also quite beefy, could compare it to the Trash. And Jax is also quite beefy for himself, and then there's the Syndra Cleanse. So I'm saying, Trash is a bad target to go for, but he's very similar to the others. But I'm just thinking in a case where Kuba just flashes in here, he might be in danger of the Syndra, but he could just flash into this space, and if he flashed into this space instead of focusing this guy, he could have followed up here on his teammates, and I think it could have ended a lot better. I think all in all, maybe Crown should have ulted already here. Like, Crown could have also potentially just ulted the Jarvan, like right here, if he just throws down his spells. The ult comes down on Khan, which is also like valuable here. There's a lot of MR on Kaz, so it's understandable why he doesn't. I'm just thinking here that the best case scenario for Samsung is when Kuve is just flashing in and following up on his teammates here. I think that is the best case scenario. Longzhu getting away from this fight with 1-0 when they are the ones that don't want to group and want to split push with this Jax, I think it's a very positive thing. And I think Longzhu are happy with the fact that Cannon only ulted one target, and the longer these fights go, and Samsung, after they use their ultimates, is going to be a lot weaker in these fights. When Samsung use their ultimates, the Rakan and the Sejuani ultimate, and also the Mazahar ultimate, then definitely Samsung is a lot stronger. Oh, that's a pre-cleanse on Ruler. Ruler with the jump. BDD with the non-KDA play here. He goes in for the flash, and it's really, really unnecessary. Holy moly, this is quite bad. Now he gets a chunk off, and Khan was base. And Longzhu, even though they have a man advantage, doesn't matter, but he goes for the play. It's quite horrendous. Crown is already out. He's knocked out cold. He needs to base. He's too low to stay, and no summoners on prey because of what happened before when Kuve came in from the angle, and this is just terrible. There's no other way to put it. BDD in this situation, going for the flash is just atrocious. It's really, really awful. Holy moly, BDD, best KDA player in the world, and goes for this play. Not that great. And Samsung, over the skill, all of a sudden, Longzhu don't have the wave clear, Khan was on base, and all of a sudden they get the mid tower. Prey is also dead. Samsung will have a lot of time to work with. The main thing here is the Crown can TP into the situation, and Samsung could potentially just force Nashor. Ruler, if he pushes it in and maybe just kills another wave. Samsung does have a good timing window here to do the Nashor, because Crown is going to TP in, and even though he spawns at the same time as BDD and Prey, then there's just going to be so much further ahead. TP is going to be spotted. I don't think Longzhu can do anything about this. This is just a product of Prey and BDD dying, because Samsung did get these 2 kills. They did get these priority afterwards, because the enemy team, of course, needs to run away. And a massive issue here for Longzhu is that in team fights they are much weaker. And Khan, losing his TP from before, puts him in a situation where he just can't run bottom, because Samsung will just force Nashor. And Samsung has a very good team to deal with Nashor, and Samsung are in a very healthy state. And I'm very impressed by Kuve's move here to just super slow push the wave on bottom, and I definitely learned something there myself. I thought that was amazing. I just said at first that he should just push up bottom, but obviously that would have been a mistake. Samsung now with the Baron can spread out easily with the TP on Cannon. TP is coming up on Kando, so he can match, but super creeps are going to be hard to deal with. Excuse me for my yawning. my throat is so dry. My health is getting a bit better, but I still have the same issues. I feel like I have shit in my lungs and I have like pain in my rib cage. Alright. So Samsung now with the Baron in a very good position to take away this game. Some defensive items are starting to show up. Morty is almost done on Khan, but there's already a Void Staff on Cannon, and Void Staff is coming in from Malta as well. Tristana is in a very good state here. She has Ardent Sense of Support, the enemy team doesn't. Trash shouldn't be that useful past lane phase, even though he landed that hook on Core JJ. That you could argue that Longzhu won the fight because of it. I think Longzhu's composition here requires a lot of pieces to fall into place. They need to go through a lot of loopholes to be effective with their comp. And I think the fights that they won, even those fights, that was Samsung doing a lot of mistakes. And I think a big issue for Longzhu was that Khan wasn't allowed to play a split push game, and Kuve's wave management was beautiful. Like, it was amazing to see. His wave management was on point, and Tresh falls off big time. Very hard for Longzhu to deal with Tristana at this point in time. She has a Quicksilver Sash as well. QSS buy on Zaya puts her behind on itemization, and Tristana obviously with the longer range is going to be more effective than Prey. Crown also managed to make quite a comeback. I thought it was strange how BDD gave up mid priority in a lot of those cases and gave Crown room to breathe. And I think that shouldn't have happened. If Longzhu wanted to continue to pressure this game, they needed to have that mid priority, and that mid tower should have fallen. But I feel like BDD gave Crown too much room to breathe. I think BDD based too often, and he also, he was fapping around the Raptors a bit too much. I think there was also this mistake where BDD died when he had vision on top side and played towards top side. I mean, he had vision on bot side and then played towards top side and then got caught and killed. And he got a turret aggro, and then on top of this, the BDD situation where he did in fact flash in to get Crown. Alright. And keep in mind here, Crown still doesn't have Void Staff, so this Mortis is doing a lot of work here for Khan. Khan is very beefy. He has to flash out. Okay. Big fight for Longzhu. I want to take a step back and look at how it all started. Jarvan comes in. Hook on Core JJ. That's how it starts. Core JJ is forced to make this defensive ultimate to get the Keystone popped. We see the Gargoyle Stoneplate is doing a lot of work here for Cuz. Cuz is quite beefy himself at this point in time. Has about 5k health with that Gargoyle Stoneplate coming in here. And then what is Ruler doing here? Ruler is getting rooted in. He walks past a lot of these things here. Kuve, it's hard for him to find an angle. He does have flash. He's waiting, and then he gets stunned up. He just gets stunned and killed. Kuve is just trying to hide in the sneaky bush, and BDD finds him and kills him. But the biggest issue here is how the fight starts. Core JJ is forced to use his ultimate, and Jarvan takes a lot of damage back. So it's not too horrible what Core JJ does, right? He taunts Cuz up, and the biggest issue is that Kuve is forced to kind of snap TP. When he snap TPs here, he takes a lot of damage. He takes the Syndra rotation, and Cannon without an Hourglass or a Banshee or whatever is just one-shotted by BDD there. So Core JJ was not as effective as he wanted to be. Good engage from Cuz, even better hook from Gorilla. All in all, I think also there's this problem here that Samsung is so split up. We can see that Crown is here, he gets cut off, and then the teammates from here are just cut off because Longzhu is walking up here. Ruler gets hooked in. I mean, he gets rooted by Zaya E, and he's forced to flash instantly to put Samsung in a group situation, and then Kuve is kind of stuck to fend for himself over here because he had to snap TP because Core JJ was getting caught. And then, of course, looking back at it, then the TP from Kue was not good at all. He was in this bush, and then BDD he just traded with him for free. He knows exactly where it's going to show up, and then the QW landed. He lost half of his health. Cannon is very the opposite of tanky. I don't know. He's soft. He's mushy. He's like a little mushroom. He's very easy to kill. TP's in, snap decision TP after KoreJJ gets caught, and he's just not in a good position. KoreJJ getting hooked is a problem because it's in a phase where Ambition, like Samsung, is just walking through topside. Like right here, the wave is already dead for Samsung. They don't need to take any risk, and if anything, they should step into here together with Ambition. So this is a problem to me that they're trying to walk up, and I don't know what they're trying to do. They're trying to auto-attack the enemy team. I don't know, it worked once. But right here, if they made the rotation into here and stepped into this side of the jungle, and then Malzahar is clearing mid-wave, all of a sudden it becomes a better situation, I think. But Samsung decided to stay topside instead, and Samsung, like looking at this position, there are 2 people here, and this is the space that is going to be dangerous for them. And this is where KoreJJ gets hooked in. He gets hooked, bam, the hook lands, and then all of a sudden now you can see how much the position matters, because right now the Samsung's team is divided into 2 groups. TP comes in from Cannon. And Kuve just loses half his health. And then we have the fight splitting off into 2 segments. Malzahar ultimate doesn't get any follow-up on, like Khan is not losing any HP because Samsung is cut off from the fight and they need to be wary of what's going on here. And then Ruler finally takes the decision to just walk towards his teammate, but it's a situation where he needs to flash and QSS instantly. So obviously this is not a good position, where when your AD needs to flash and QSS to get to the fight, it's not going to be a good time. And then Longzhu just sees the day here with that hook. Very well played from Longzhu that they can see and take this fight. I think Samsung are definitely in a strong position to make this game easier for themselves. But let's see now. We continue on. Longzhu and his Khan doesn't have a TP now, so his split push is not as effective. Baron is up in 1 minute, and the Infernal Drake is going to start to do work here, especially with the death cap. The numbers the Infernal Drakes are given now are through the roof. Next dragon is Elder as well, so no more Infernal Drakes. Took a lot of time for the teams to kill the Cloud Drake. It's just so unattractive to kill. There we go. Banshee's Veil on Cannon. I don't know how much it matters. Redemption finished on Gorilla as well. Now the landscape differs a lot because now Kaza is beefy enough to actually face check bushes. So Khan's priority is not as important, even though he should have priority and he should be able to roam into mid lane. But Kuve is going to always look for scenarios where he can just pressure through mid and put Jax in a group situation. Cannon as well, with his flash, needs to find a good entry, but the main thing is with his Banshee, maybe he can survive from getting one shot by Syndra. KoreJJ almost getting hooked once again. Longzhu definitely have tools now to face check bushes, and them being that much weaker at this point in time doesn't matter too much because QSS is on Xayah. QSS, she has had QSS for a long time, but the MR numbers and the health numbers matter definitely. Longzhu have the tools to face check bushes. Kuve is now in bottom and Baron's also up. We talked a lot about how Samsung kill Nashor fast. Longzhu do as well with the Jax. Kuve is now walking. He's doing cross country. He has a long way to go. This has to be like a 50-50 Nash steal. I think going for the team fight is also a good decision for Longzhu, but the engage doesn't land. The engage goes on to Crown, and I think if anything, Longzhu turned too soon, because Cuz is forced to EQ and then ult, and he goes on to Malzahar, who has a flash. And when Malzahar flashes out of this, all of a sudden Longzhu's ability to engage this fight is just non-existent. So right here, I think the main issue for Longzhu is that they need to wait a bit longer. They need to wait a bit longer, force Crown to be in a position where he's actually taking a risk. Because right here, when he gets engaged on, he's taking no risk. Like he's not playing for anything right now. Like he can't reach anything. Like his range of circle is like this. He can't really reach anything right now, and he needs to walk in a bit further. I think Longzhu could have continued to do Nashor and then forced the enemy team to walk in a bit further and then force the engagement onto them. But right here is a bit too forced from Cuz. He EQs and then ults in, and then all of a sudden, Longzhu no longer have any way of engaging. No way of engaging here, and Ruler is doing a lot of damage. Like Ruler, keep in mind, he has 4 items. He has 4 items, which makes him do an insane amount of damage. Crazy things. And now Samsung are the ones who just gonna take away Baron, and also the Elder Dragon most likely. I think it's still the right decision. I just feel like the engagement is just way too off. Like the engage that Longzhu do here is just way too off. Kuvi showing up bottom. Like I don't know if this was planned from Samsung, because Samsung could have just sent Malzahar into bottom with the TP to clear the wave. So maybe the thought process was from Samsung that the enemy team can't do Nashor 4v5. Because they could have just sent Malzahar into bottom and deal with this, and they would have had no issues at all. But in a situation here where Longzhu just continue to do Nashor, Ambition doesn't have any clean vision off of it, and then like Gorilla just gets one-shotted, Core JJ knocks up both Cuz and Gorilla, and Khan just gets ulted by Malzahar into a one-shot. It's very awkward for Jax to buy Quicksilver Sash, but in a case where Longzhu is actually winning the fight and not engaging like this, then the likeliness of Jax being needed to use QSS is less. So it's understandable that he doesn't have it. Imagine in a situation where like Longzhu actually got a good engage off, then Jack's QSS wouldn't matter at all. Like his QSS wouldn't have saved him here either, because he was just dead because his team was out of the fight already. But Samsung are in such a great position now with the Void Staffs ready and the Cannon flash up, and Tristana being as fed as she is. It's gonna make it very hard for Longzhu to impact this. Sure, Khan can go off on his side lane, but it's too late for that. Like right now, Samsung are playing a game where the enemy team is forced to be grouped, and that has been the case for a large duration of this game. So you have to ask yourself if this Jax pick is useful. Is it useful? It's been effective in some fights. Was definitely a baity one to start this Baron. I just feel once again, the issue is that Longzhu just engaged too early. Like they can play with the fact that Ambition won't see this because of the pink, and then maybe of course Samsung could place another pink here and they would have vision over it. But nevertheless, the main thing for me is that Longzhu need to engage when Samsung are actually in this space. But they try to engage on a target that's here. And that's absolutely crazy. Like the EQ came in, EQ, like this is the flag. And then the ult came in. And it was responded to with the flash. Gorilla was also committing at the same time as Khan did. And with the counter engage from Samsung, there's no way that you reach the back line. And the front line with Ambition is still very beefy and strong. And he's not going to get one shot here. And Ruler with his range advantage zones the rest of the carries. Whoa. The fight was just over, you know. That's the issue here with Zaya and Thresh. Like they are getting heavily outscaled by the enemy bot lane, heavily outscaled. Elder Dragon is the name of the game. Longzhu knows. Samsung have priority from before. Old lands on Kaz. BDD uses ultimate. Not a lot of strong ultimates on Longzhu compared to Samsung's ultimates, and Samsung are just way happy to be in a group situation. There's very little hope now to kill Tristana, like with the Mercurial Scimitar and her jumps and her barriers. It's going to be very difficult to kill the Tristana. It's just not gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen at all. And we have to like think about the draft. Looking back at it, you know, Samsung, they spiked quite early, you know, and the main thing here is that Longzhu fall off pretty hard. But let's just take a look at this and reassess the game after this, because maybe Longzhu somehow clawed their way back, but it should be super over. Samsung now with 3 inhibitors, it should be no way that Longzhu win this one. Whoa. Okay. Triple inhib into Infernal Drake. I always call it Infernal Drake for some reason. It's like not intentional, but because you get a fire buff, you know, it makes sense. Okay, triple inhib. Samsung should be able to end this. I'm just gonna talk about how the drafts played out. Jax, not the best laner against Cannon, but eventually had priority. Kuve, with fantastic lane management, put Jax in scenarios where he needed to group. Samsung, from minute like 7 and onwards, they should have the stronger teamfight composition. They have the Rakan in comparison to Thresh. They also have Tristana in comparison to Zaya. So sure, before Tristana gets items, Zaya has utility that she provides to the team, and this matters as well. But Tristana got her items, and the moment that happened, the game was a bit too hard for Longzhu. Longzhu's win condition was always a bit iffy, and it was very reliant on Samsung making mistakes, and Kuve with his wave management kind of shut Khan's split push completely down. Samsung now with the first win of the series, and you know, I just have to attribute that to draft. I think the main thing here with Longzhu is that a lot of situations, a lot of team fights, they played a lot better than Samsung. They played a lot of the individual parts of the lane phase very well. We saw a solo kill from BDD, and also Longzhu's bot lane to have like they had like a perma push going on, and Khan remaining very healthy in the Cannon versus Jax matchup. This is important to highlight. But after that, you know, Samsung's comp just kicked into gear. I think BD did a lot of mistakes when it came to his wave management, how he should have pushed mid lane more, and he based a bit too often, and it kind of gave Crown too much breathing space. And this was a situation where BDD was shitting on him big time. But I felt like BDD was way too reserved after what happened where he died against the Ambition gank. Ambition being very active in the early game in comparison to other games. He got his first kill at 9 minutes and then went on to kill Khan at the top side, while his bottom lost the turret, which was like kind of counterplay in that sense. And all in all, you know, very interesting game, but I have to say that Longzhu didn't make it easy for themselves with this draft. You know, sure, they have some early game potential, but I think this type of an advantage against Malzahar is not something that you can like necessarily rely on, and like not rely on. Sure, you can rely on this advantage, but you can't rely on getting it every time. And Zaya, Trash against Tristana and Rakan. Sure, early on you can create a lot of things, you can create a lot of pressure, but when your team comp altogether falls off in comparison to the enemy team comp, then you have a problem. You know, even though Longzhu's bot lane amounted them to the first tower, and you know, the CS differential wasn't that big. You know, they had a lot of priority, and I feel like the early game played out like it's supposed to. You know, in that sense, if you look past the mid lane gank, you know, Samsung played around top side, they managed to get the first tower top side, and Longzhu played around bottom and got the first tower top side. Of course, they got the first third gold. And then eventually, when like the macro game kicked into gear, Samsung was very strong. They took some bad fights, which Longzhu played better in, but in the long run, Samsung have the better comp for those fights. So if Samsung clean up their mistakes in those fights, then this game looks even more one-sided. All right, I think that propels us towards the next game. Let's continue on and see what happens next. Fun stuff. I'm happy so far with the first match. Let's see what comes next.